Welcome to Trill Studio, where we bring you some of the best stories from around the internet. If this is something you're interested in, please like, subscribe, and click the notifications so you don't miss a video. You can find all the original creators' links in the description. Tonight, we delve into chilling tales that will send shivers down your spine. Our first story comes from @MrNightmare. Imagine a Halloween night from your childhood. Costumes, candy, and a chill in the air. For two boys, this night took a sinister turn when they encountered a man with a stroller. His offer of candy seemed harmless, but what they discovered was anything but. Prepare yourself for a disturbing revelation that will make you question who might be lurking in the shadows on those Halloween nights.
This is a disturbing memory from my young childhood. I was about 7 or 8 years old. My mom would usually take my brother and I trick-or-treating, but this particular year, after school, she dropped me off at my friend Sean's house, where Sean, our friend Johnny, and I would go together. Johnny and Sean were a year older than me. We met while I was playing with my brother on the block. Johnny and Sean lived around the block from me. Sean had a weird upbringing that I never really understood. His sister was like 20 years old. There was a big gap between them. She was always his caretaker, it seemed, whenever I was at his house. His house always smelled like cat, and his sister always had a different guy over, it seemed like. His sister was always cold to me, in the sense that she'd never acknowledge me or say hi or anything. Sean's dad was never in the picture, and his mom, I believe, was always working out of town, I guess. I only met Sean's mom a few times. We never really stayed in touch for long enough for me to figure all of this out. Anyway, my mom dropped me off at Sean's, expecting that Sean's mom would be trick-or-treating with us. After saying goodbye, I went into his house. Johnny was already there. We all had big pillow sacks to fill with candy. This was around the time that I learned that neither Sean's mom nor sister were coming with us to supervise. I was young, so I sort of felt slightly uncomfortable knowing that Johnny and Sean would be leading the way, but at the same time, I felt a sense of excitement that we'd have more freedom. I knew for a fact my mom would not have approved of us going unsupervised, though. So, eventually, we were off into the neighborhood, walking around doing our rounds door to door. Quite a few people asked if we were alone or where our parents were, and Johnny would always be the one to use the same lie, that his mom is up ahead with his sister. It worked every time. This was on a Friday, so we didn't get to start at trick-or-treating until around 5 o'clock. But we didn't have school the next day, so we intended on going until our pillow sacks were completely full. We took a break after a couple of hours and went to Sean's, where he heated up a bunch of frozen pizzas. At the time, I was so jealous of the apparent freedom he had in his house, not having parents who cared about what he did. But looking back now, I count myself super blessed to have grown up in a household with 2 strict parents. After we hung out at his house for an hour and watched Halloween specials on Nickelodeon while eating pizza and candies, Johnny eventually was picked up by his mom, but Sean and I wanted to keep going, so we eventually headed back out for round 2. It was dark out now, and it had to be past 8 p.m. There were a lot less trick-or-treaters now. We tried to go to certain blocks we hadn't gone down yet, which meant straying further away from Sean's house. We found a block we hadn't touched yet and continued knocking on doors. Some houses didn't answer at this hour, and mostly everyone else had a comment about us being alone or how it's getting late. We noticed a man pushing a stroller a couple houses down behind us. He was walking very slowly in our direction, probably a dad trick-or-treating for his young child. As we continued going door to door, the man with the stroller got closer. Eventually, we heard him going shh and singing softly. Eventually, he caught up to us, and he said, "How's the trick-or-treating going, boys?" And we replied, "Good," at the same time. And then he said, "It's pretty late. I'm on my way back to my house. I can give you guys the rest of my candy." Sean and I looked at each other with telling faces, as if we just hit the jackpot. Sean asked what kind of candies, and he said a bunch of bags of different things. He said he didn't get to give much away because he wanted to take his daughter out for a trick-or-treat stroll. He did have a bag dangling on one of the handles of the stroller, which was filled with some candies. The stroller was fully covered by a folding piece on the top, so we couldn't see his daughter. He said she's asleep and he didn't want to wake her up, but he pointed ahead and said his house is just up this way. So we followed behind him as he pushed the stroller. He was walking a little faster now. As we walked, I realized there was next to no one else out at this point, even though it was a Friday night. It seemed like a quieter side of the neighborhood. The man talked to us as we walked, asking us questions. What part of the neighborhood we were from, where we went to school, basic stuff. I let Sean answer most of the questions. Him being even just a year older than me at that age, I felt like he was the one who should take lead. On multiple occasions as we walked, the man would lean into the stroller and talk in a high pitch to his daughter. Then he'd turn back and smile at us. We finally made it to his house. He led us up the walkway with the stroller and unlocked his door. After he opened it, he brought the stroller with his daughter inside first, and then invited us to come inside. Sean led the way, so I followed. I was the one to ask if we could leave the door open, and the man paused, and then said, "Yeah, of course." He said he'll be right back as he goes to get the candy bags. He pushed the stroller into the middle of the living room, only about 10 feet away from where we were standing. I nudged Sean because I felt uncomfortable. I whispered, "Why would he leave the candy so far away?" Sean didn't respond. Instead, he turned toward the living room and then walked up to the stroller. He lifted up the folding part that was covering the baby, and he looked disturbed. He hurried back to me, whispering, "Let's go." He was full on running once we got outside, and I followed behind, which was a bit tougher because we had those heavy pillow sacks. I still was confused about what he saw, but just then, we heard a woman's voice yell, "Excuse me." It was one of his neighbors. She came running over to us and asked if we know that man, and it was at this point that Sean spilled the beans and said he offered us his leftover candy, but he was pushing a stroller with a fake baby in it. I remember getting goosebumps as he said that. The woman said, "Yeah, that man doesn't have a child. I saw you walking by with him." She took us to her car and drove each of us home. I know, getting into a stranger's car after that was another questionable move. The woman came to my front door to talk to my mom about what we just told her. My mom was distraught. After I told her every last detail about the night, she sent me to my room while my parents called the police on that man. My parents never told me anything about what happened after that. I believe they wanted to shelter me from any more exposure to the situation. My mom didn't want me going over to Sean's house anymore, and I know she had quite a bit to say to Sean's mom. I did see Sean at school once in a while still, and we'd remain cordial, but our friendship was never the same after that night.
That Halloween tale has me rethinking those innocent childhood nights. The next story, shared by Here.Skeleton, takes us on a different kind of journey. One where a simple wrong turn leads to a nightmarish encounter. Picture this. Jordan is driving down a rural road when unsettling figures start to appear in the dark. What begins as a wrong turn quickly spirals into a terrifying ordeal with shadows that seem to breathe. Buckle up for a ride you won't soon forget.
I waited. Didn't turn on any more lights. Just sat with Moose on my lap, his tail flicking against my leg. I didn't hear any more knocking, no more footsteps. When the cops got there, it was close to dawn. I heard the knock on the front door and waited until they identified themselves before I moved the dresser and let them in. They checked the yard, walked the property with flashlights, came back and told me they didn't see anyone, no signs of break-in, but one of the officers pointed out footprints in the side yard, barefoot. Long strides. They didn't find any that led away, just to the window and the back porch. No vehicle tracks, no tire prints. Whoever it was, they walked there, and they didn't leave the way they came. I left that morning, told Nate everything. He was shaken, but there wasn't much he could do. We filed a report, but nothing ever came of it. No updates, no arrests. I don't house sit anymore, and I always keep my phone charged now, no matter where I am. I was working freelance IT contracts, just enough to pay the bills and keep the car barely alive. That night started off normal. I'd gone out to visit my cousin Nate. He lives in this rural stretch near Millridge, where cell service gets weird and everything shuts down by 9 p.m. We don't see each other that often, but when we do, it's always the same routine. Bad coffee, old stories, and passive-aggressively bringing up the fact that neither of us talks to our dads anymore. We lost track of time like always. I looked at my phone and saw it was already close to 12:30. Nate offered the couch, but I said no. I had a client call in the morning and a pile of invoices I hadn't touched. I didn't feel great about it, but I figured I'd be home by 2:30 if I didn't stop. The drive started off fine, boring, just 2-lane roads and patches of fog. I had a podcast going, one of those true crime ones where everyone talks in this dramatic whisper like they're about to reveal a government secret. That kind of stuff usually keeps me alert, but about 40 minutes into the drive, I realized I hadn't seen another car in a long time. Just trees, fields, more trees. I glanced down and saw my GPS app had frozen. Thought maybe it was a glitch, so I restarted it. Nothing. Spinning circle. Then it closed on its own. No signal. Great. I kept driving, hoping to find a highway sign or something. But the road curved off in the wrong direction, and before I knew it, I didn't recognize a thing. I saw this narrow dirt road coming up on the right. No signs, no street lights. It looked like something the county forgot to finish. I thought maybe it was a shortcut, something that could loop back toward the interstate, so I took it. The road was tighter than I expected. Trees on both sides, branches scraping the sides of my car. It felt like I was going deeper into nowhere, but I was too far in to turn around. After maybe 5 minutes, the road opened up into this clearing, not huge, just enough space for a few parked cars, though none were there. There was a broken down structure at the center. Could have been a barn or maybe a tool shed at some point, but now it looked like it had just given up and collapsed in on itself. I parked and cut the engine. My first instinct was to check my phone again. Still no signal, battery at 9%. I didn't panic, but something about the silence felt wrong. Not eerie, just heavy. I leaned back in my seat for a second, figuring I'd wait a few minutes, let the phone rest, then try again. That's when I heard it. 3 knocks. Not soft, not frantic, just firm and evenly spaced, right on the trunk. I froze, didn't turn around. My first thought was maybe I'd run over a branch or something had hit the car. I stayed still, listening. Nothing. Then 4 more knocks. This time higher. Like window level. I didn't move. I wasn't breathing right. I could feel my heart beat in my arms. And the knocks weren't asking for help. That's the part that sticks with me. They didn't sound scared or rushed. They sounded curious. I don't know how long I sat there, staring straight ahead, refusing to move. My brain was screaming not to look, but eventually I gave in. I glanced at the rearview mirror. Nobody was there, but right in the center of the rear windshield there was a handprint, just one, wet, clear, pressed flat against the inside of the glass. I hadn't touched that window. No one had. I knew that with everything in me. My hands were shaking as I started the car, and I nearly stalled it trying to throw it into reverse. The tires spun in the mud for a second, then finally caught. I backed out fast, hit the road, and just drove. I didn't care where it led. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't even blink. At some point, I passed a gas station with all the lights on. Didn't stop. Then a diner with a neon open 24 hours sign. Kept going. I only pulled over when I saw a small cafe I recognized from earlier. The Beacon Cafe. Red neon sign in the shape of a coffee cup. I parked, crooked, and stumbled inside like I was drunk. There were only 2 people in there. A guy in the corner asleep over his pancakes and an older waitress behind the counter. She looked up and gave me this calm, almost knowing smile. "You all right?" she asked. I nodded, even though I absolutely wasn't. She poured me a cup of coffee without asking. I sat at the bar, hands shaking so bad I spilled some, trying to bring it to my mouth. She watched me for a second, then said, "You come off that dirt loop off County Road 16? I blinked at her. I hadn't said anything about the road. I wasn't even sure what road I'd turned on. She nodded slowly, like she'd just confirmed something. People always think it's a shortcut. GPS screws up out there. I didn't say a word. She tapped the counter gently with her nails, then said, "I tell folks, but no one listens. Some roads don't lead where you think. And not everything out there wants to be found." That was it. No big speech, no dramatic music cue, just that. After a while, my phone picked up a bar of signal. I messaged Nate to say I was okay, then sat there until I felt steady enough to drive. I made it home around 4 a.m. I haven't gone near that part of Millridge since. I even avoid the highway that runs close to it. Sometimes if I'm driving late and feel tired, I'll pull into a parking lot before I even think about taking a back road.
Jordan's unsettling road experience has left me double-checking my GPS. Now, let's dive into a tale from @MJV Animations that will make you think twice about rest stops. Our narrator finds himself in a series of eerie events at these seemingly mundane locations. But things take a horrifying turn when he's attacked by a man wielding a baseball bat, a face all too familiar from an earlier sinister encounter. This is a story where the ordinary becomes a battleground. Stay alert as we uncover the dangers lurking in the most unexpected places.
A few years ago, when I was in college, I was heading home to meet up with my family over winter break. The drive was nearly across the entire country, so multiple long days in a row of non-stop roads. I was a broke college student though, so I wasn't booking any hotels or even motels. I packed some blankets in the back seat and figured I'd sleep wherever I could, whenever I got tired. Around 1 a.m., and after 11 hours straight of driving, I finally called it quits for the night. I was starting to get dangerously tired, so I found the next rest stop I could sleep at, and pulled over. It was one of those small pull-offs right on the side of the highway, meant for just a few cars or trucks. It had a little building with what looked like a washroom, and a couple vending machines. There was only one other car there, parked in the spot farthest back, so I parked in the opposite spot to give us both some privacy. Then I got up to stretch my legs and use the restroom real quick. It definitely wasn't clean in there, which was kinda gross, but I did my business, then left to go back to my car. When I did, there was a man standing right outside my window. He was looking in at what I had in there. Can I help you?" My voice visibly startled him. He nervously took a few steps back and chuckled, saying he was trying to see if I was in there to ask if I had some cash for the vending machine. My car was basically a fishbowl, all clear, untinted windows that you could easily see whether or not I was inside, so there was no reason to be pressed up to my windows, looking in like he was. "Yeah, I got no cash on me. Sorry, man," I said, walking around him to get back in my car. But to my surprise, he didn't leave. He actually tried to start another conversation, asking me what brought me out here tonight. I'm on a road trip. I'm sorry, but I really need to get some sleep. I can't really talk right now." I got in my car, and the guy did a sorry wave, then walked down to the other car and got in. I was a bit relieved to see he got in the car, and wasn't just a homeless person being creepy at a random rest stop. To be honest though, I think I was too tired to even feel uncomfortable, or care what that man was up to. I just wanted to sleep. Thinking back on it though, and in a normal state of mind, I probably would have just left and gone to the next rest stop. I reorganized the mess in my front seat, tossing everything in the back, then leaned my seats as far back as I could and tried to get comfortable. I had my eyes shut for just a few minutes before I could tell some lights were moving around outside my car, which made me open my eyes to see what it was. I sat up, seeing in the mirror that that guy had moved his car right up behind mine. I watched for a minute, unsure why he'd moved at all, but with things getting a little too creepy, I knew I had to take the L and just find somewhere else to sleep. I pulled my seat back up, tossed my car in drive, and got back on the highway. I had a few unfriendly words to say under my breath about that dude as I pulled away. There weren't a lot of places to stop at on this stretch of road, so this inconvenience was going to cost me at least 30 to 40 minutes. It was dangerous how tired I was on this drive. My eyelids would close for a second or two, then shoot back open once I realized I was dozing off. This pretty much went on and off the whole way, until finally I reached the next rest stop. Or what was a rest stop. It looked very similar to the other one, except it was without a doubt abandoned, or out of service. The building was all taped up and decaying, and graffiti covered most of the exterior. Still, it was a place to pull off, and I figured I wouldn't have any issues sleeping here just for a few hours. Not sure if it was because the place was quiet and abandoned, or me just being really tired, but I passed out within a minute. I have to say, before I woke up, I got some pretty good sleep. I think I slept from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. before I woke up violently to a crash against my car. The whole car shook as I scrambled to figure out what the hell happened. I looked in my left mirror, seeing a car's headlights parked right behind me. Then I looked in the right mirror. There was a man right beside my car with a metal baseball bat. He swung it again, bursting the back window. I kept yelling, "What the fuck," over and over, trying to get my keys and get away. The man came up to the passenger window, where I then saw it was the guy from the other rest stop. He had this sinister smile and started taunting me, saying "liar" repeatedly, as he kept swinging the bat against my car, then staring at me with that smile and calling me a liar again. I didn't know what he was talking about, but I was able to get the car on and leave before it got worse. I called 911, phone shaking in my hand as I drove away. I was able to meet up with an officer at a gas station, where I explained the incident and was able to take note of the damage to my car. 2 windows were shattered, and dents were scattered all over the doors, and somehow I didn't notice that my back right tire was also slashed and almost flat. Another officer went to the abandoned rest stop, finding all the glass shards on the ground, but the man was already long gone. They notified all the patrol cars of the man's appearance and vehicle, but came up empty-handed. After being stuck in an unknown town for a few days to get my car fixed, I was able to make it home safely. It's crazy how insane some people are. I mean, I assume that guy lost his shit over something as simple as me not giving him a few bucks for the vending machine, or even just not wanting to talk to him at 1 a.m. on the side of a highway. The fact that I could have died that night over something so absurd is horrifying.
Rest stops will never feel the same again after that encounter. Our next story, shared by @HorrorShortsParty, takes us to the seemingly innocent setting of a sleepover, a night that transforms into a living nightmare. The narrator visits a friend's house, but soon suspects something malevolent is at play. The suspense builds to a heart-pounding climax in the most unexpected of places, the bathroom. Get ready to question what truly lies behind closed doors in the dead of night.
The skibbity toilet trend has been blowing up on the internet, but all I see are memories of what really happened to me back when I was a teenager. I was friends with these 2 guys from school named Josh and Kyle. I didn't know either of them very well. We were just friends due to the proximity more than anything else. All 3 of us lived fairly close to one another and were in a lot of the same classes. One night, I was heading over to Kyle's house for a sleepover. Josh and I were invited over to Kyle's house for the weekend. I was pretty excited to just chill and take a break from school for a couple of days. Plus, his parents were apparently going to be out of town, so we had the place to ourselves. I got to Kyle's house a little late. I'd had some homework to finish up first. When I got there, Kyle answered the door almost immediately. I apologized for being late, but he told me it was no problem and waved me inside. When I went in, I was surprised to see that Josh was nowhere to be seen. It seemed kind of odd because Josh was usually right on time. Then I noticed his shoes in the foyer. There was no mistaking them as the guy's feet were several sizes smaller than mine or Kyle's, and Kyle didn't have any siblings. I asked if Josh was in another room, but Kyle just said that Josh was running late and would probably come over later. It all seemed pretty strange to me, but I shrugged it off and Kyle and I got on with the sleepover. Later on, we had been watching TV in the living room with the lights off for a few hours, and Josh still hadn't shown up. I couldn't stop thinking about it for some reason. It didn't make any sense. I had spoken to Josh earlier that day and he hadn't said anything about being that late. In fact, he said that he had made sure to finish up his homework yesterday so that he wouldn't have to worry about it. I had the scariest feeling that he had to be in the house already. Why Kyle wasn't telling me the truth about Josh's whereabouts was beyond me. I was honestly scared as hell to ask as I didn't know what Kyle would do to me. For all I knew, there was something really dark going on. What was even more unsettling was that I kept hearing a noise at random points throughout the night. It sounded like someone was saying skibbity over and over again from a distance. It would come and go every few minutes, never lasting for that long, but it was consistent. After it had happened a few times, I asked Kyle what it was. He said something vague about his dad using the washroom that didn't make any sense. Besides, he had told me that his parents were gone for the weekend. When I brought that up to him, he slowly turned and gave me a really creepy look. A few seconds later, he turned back to the TV without saying a word. I was really shaken now and was starting to feel very scared. Kyle had never acted like this before. I was honestly shitting bricks. Plus, I literally had to shit since I was so petrified. I asked Kyle where the washroom was and he told me it was downstairs and to the right. He never once took his eyes away from the TV while he spoke. I got up and walked out of the room pretty quickly. I was happy for an excuse to get away from Kyle for a moment. When I got to the stairs, I started to feel even more afraid for some reason. My breaths were coming out very shallow and my legs didn't want to work right. It was like I was walking through tar. Every step felt difficult. I slowly forced myself to go down the stairs. And as I did so, I started to hear the skibbity sounds again. They seemed to intensify the further downstairs I went. It sounded like they were coming from inside the bathroom. Just when I was considering leaving and going back home, I suddenly had the thought that this was most likely all an elaborate prank that Josh and Kyle were pulling on me. Josh had to be the one downstairs making the noises. It all made perfect sense. I was going to open that door and find Josh laughing his ass off on the other side. I felt relieved and opened the door to the bathroom to tell Josh off. But I didn't find Josh inside. Instead, I saw something much worse. A super creepy head was sticking out of the toilet with a really long neck. It was twisting around jerkily and saying skibbity over and over again. I stood there frozen until it suddenly turned toward me and started yelling stuff at me. It looked like it was trying to break out of the toilet and come after me. I ran back upstairs and got the hell out of that house as fast as I could. I didn't stop until I was all the way back home. After that night, I dropped out of school and never contacted Josh or Kyle again. I have no idea whatever became of Josh. I think Kyle and his dad might have did something to him, but I never heard if he was alive or dead. I swear that what I saw in that bathroom had to have been some sort of demon. There was no way in hell that a person could stick their head out of a toilet like that, let alone have their body inside of one. I can't say for sure though. For all I know, Kyle and his dad were psychos who lured students to their house so that they could pull sick pranks on them. I'm still conflicted. I really think that it may have been something supernatural after all. I saw it with my own eyes. It couldn't have been human. On darker nights, I can sometimes still hear someone saying skibbity in the distance, and I still find myself scared to use a toilet every now and then. Skibbity!
I was halfway home on the bus when I had to get off at a random stop to find a toilet. My stomach hurt so bad it felt like I was about to explode, so it was definitely an emergency. Unfortunately, a lot of the bus route went through some pretty sketchy parts of town. That was just how seriously I needed to find a toilet. I figured if anybody tried to have a problem with me, I could just let it rip and they'd be too grossed out to dig through my pockets. The only place that was still open in the area immediately around the bus stop was a dingy fast food joint, but I didn't have a choice. I hurried inside and rushed right to the bathroom, which was a huge disappointment. The light switch didn't even work, and the only light to see was coming from a flickering streetlight through a small window. Plus, there were only 2 stalls, and a urinal with a garbage bag over it, and just as I feared, I wasn't alone. It sounded like a crazy person had locked themselves inside one of the stalls and was chanting in tongues, just saying the same nonsense word over and over again. Skibbity, 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 whatever that means in crazy talk. I was hoping that nobody would be present for what I was about to go through, but I didn't care enough for it to stop me. Unfortunately, when I opened the stall with nobody in it, I was so disgusted by what I saw that I almost threw up. Somebody had managed to coat just about every inch of the toilet with their feces, inside and out, and it smelled like a rotting corpse. Even in my most desperate hour, I would rather poop in my own pants than touch that mess even with 3 layers of gloves on, let alone my bare butt cheeks. And hovering over it was not an option because I didn't want any of the splashback from that toilet to have a chance of touching me. That left me with only one other option, to ask whatever wacko nutjob was in the other stall to do their chanting somewhere else so I could use the toilet. I knocked it first, then realized the door wasn't even locked. Before I opened the door all the way, I tried to warn them. There was no response, so I slowly pushed open the door.
That sleepover story has certainly made me rethink overnight stays. From here, we journey into a chilling road trip tale from @Whisper Diaries. Imagine being far from home, surrounded by the quiet of a secluded cabin. But the silence is shattered when a stranger comes knocking, wielding an axe. What starts as a peaceful escape quickly turns into a fight for survival. Lock your doors and brace yourself for this unsettling encounter. That cabin story was a reminder of how quickly tranquility can turn into terror. Finally, let's explore a sinister narrative from @InBillMeJ2Y about James and Deb, who discovered that their new rental home harbors dark secrets. As they settle in, the past residents' stories begin to unravel, leading to a terrifying confrontation that will make you question the history of your own abode. Dive into the shadows of this haunted home and prepare for a chilling revelation.
Hey, Deb.
James, hi. Good news. I found a listing for you.
Oh, great. I'm looking all night.
It's in your email.
Let's see.
Now, before you say anything, it is in the area that you want. It is at the price you can afford. It doesn't look like much, but it's really not that bad.
Geez, I don't know, Deb.
Well, look it over. Tell me what you think. Like I said, I know it doesn't look like much, but that's all you can afford, James.
This place doesn't look very safe. I don't know if I can really live in a place. What neighborhood is this? I mean, come on.
It's in the vicinity. It's near where you'd like it to be. There's just nowhere else that is going to go that low. My other suggestion is that you go smaller. Can't Kaylee stay with her boyfriend?
Elliot? No, I don't know about that kid. After everything that happened with her parents and missing a semester of school, I just don't think it's a good idea for her to be away from family right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, like I said, look it over. It's what you can afford. It's the space you need. The only other thing I can think of is that you can stay with Violet for longer and let me look around some more.
Yeah, Violet's a no-go too. She's not gonna let me stay here another night.
Well, that's what I have for you. Let me know what you think. Give me a call. I've got to run right now. I'll talk to you later, James.
Okay. Talk to you later, Deb.
Bye.
Contact Marcus. Here we go.
James and Deb's harrowing tale shows us just how deep the shadows of a home can run. Thank you for joining us tonight on True Real Studio. If these stories kept you on the edge of your seat, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another chilling tale. We appreciate your company and look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, stay safe and keep the lights on.